Dr. Jazz.
So,
All right.
man, I have you on so many records, and I just wanted to ask you, like, what's the last one I heard from you was like J and K South of the Border, which is
Oh
a
yeah.
beautiful record, Kai's and JJ's music. But what's happening on the Department of Band Leading for you with original music? Have you been writing in the last few years, or is there something new coming up? Or
Yeah. I have been writing. After Siggy Feigl and I opened up Tubes, our very first concert, which was October of 2020. We put a quintet together,
oh,
and we've been writing music for that group. Um, so I'm writing music for that group. I'm writing music for another group that I have called Exploding Pig, which is kind of an alternative jazz
oh, super.
group. You can definitely check that out. It's a lot of electronica and it's super multimedia and a lot of
Wow.
studio magic and stuff like this. And we go out and perform quite a bit as well. And it's really kind of a nice, really kind of nice setup. We actually, that one, we come in with ideas, or sometimes we just start to improvise and we come up with music ourselves. And it's kind of a nice setup where everywhere we go, it's like we're using all in-ears and no monitors on the
Okay.
everything's completely wireless, and it's really on the high tech side. Um,
Fantastic.
Let me say I'm also doing a couple of tours with the Italian piano player Riccardo Fassi.
Okay,
So
sure.
writing and we're doing it's kind of a fun approach to composition. We're celebrating the 100th anniversary of Henry Mancini.
Okay.
So, so I'm writing some music even though of course we're playing Henry Mancini's music, but I've been writing some music that is kind of in that model.
Yep.
So it's good. I'm writing within those parameters. So it's kind of fun, just already very melodic and pretty and as it's a trombone as it should be.
Well, yeah, I mean, I love your writing. Like, I listened today to some of the records I have you on, and by you, like, there's some beautiful tunes, like "Caught Looking." That was caught my ear actually, and "Shining Star" and the old stuff from the '90s. How do you
Sure.
usually write? What's your approach there?
I don't know. Sometimes, like I did this record some years back called "I Talking Now," and each one of those tunes came like it was either a very methodical approach, or it was just as an exercise, just give myself some strict parameters on how I'm going to develop it. Or when I'm fortunate enough, like the tune I wrote for my daughter Elise, the muse is just there, and
Yep.
so they say when the iron is hot, strike. So uh, usually by inspiration, but I try to sit and play the piano and play something at least every day.
Okay.
I learned this from a couple of friends of mine, from William Cepeda, also a trombonist in Puerto Rico, who writes. He's a composer and he's a trombone player, composer. The other one is Dave Douglas. I spent a lot of time with
Sure.
Dave, and Dave is just writing every
Oh man,
single day.
yeah, yeah. He's
So just
crazy.
like
He's crazy.
it's
Yeah.
like he's practicing, he's writing every single day. So it's kind of that other kind of composer's muscle that you really need to work out so that it's always there. And always searching for a little bit more. And then I get inspired by guys like Tim Armacost or Danilo Perez who say, "Yeah, just put your hands on the piano, and boom, and see what happens." Without even looking, just like bam, and then find the melody within that, and then so yeah, so so it's a challenging but super fun process. I enjoy it a lot.
Mm. Yeah, it's like I've been writing also for such a long time, but many times I'm just like, I don't know if you have this, but like you repeat yourself. If
Oh yeah, sure.
does it bother you? I mean, or you just write a tune because Wayne Shorter wrote like 60 Wayne Shorter tunes, which is kind of his language. But I
Sure.
sometimes write something. It's like, okay, another 7/4 groove with some theme over. And I'm like, okay, it's nice, but like, I don't know, how do you solve this kind of issues? If
Yeah, it's it's like forcing yourself to be out of the box. Let's say, and sometimes, like I say, sometimes the methodical approach is a real it forces you to have to stay within certain limits, certain parameters. So you have a model like I don't know, you play like a major nine chord, and then you choose that the melody is either on the melody is either the root, the major third, the fifth, the major seventh, or the ninth. And if the then you have each chord or each melodic note, you have a different choice.
Mhm.
You have five,
Yeah.
you have five different choices on what it can be. And what usually happens, it's kind of a nice thing. It's a very unpredictable bass movement. I did this live record from the Jazz Gallery also quite a few years ago as well, entitled Terminal Clarity.
Mm.
And that piece is written specifically this way. And
Mm.
it doesn't have a piano. It's just two saxophones. It's Peter Braynon and Donnie McCaslin and myself. So it's just three horns and then a rhythm section,
Mm.
percussion and bass. And you can really hear the harmony clearly, and the bass moves in somewhat of an unpredictable fashion.
Mm.
So even if the melody, let's say, goes up to, I don't know, the ninth, the melody can stay there, and then everything beneath that can shift to the next chord and all of a sudden make it the major third. And so so that helps you kind of get out of it. But yeah, sometimes I have this one particular thing that I really like to do, A minor to A flat diminished down to A minor over G to F sharp half diminished. I don't know. I like that sound. So every once in a while, even for my own entertainment, I'll just kind of sneak that in to just kind of for fun.
Yeah. Yeah,
But
that's
it's
not, yeah. It's we have this is like Coltrane had his changes so many times
Yeah,
in a
they're
way.
they're
So
called
all these guys. So
yeah, they're called licks.
yeah, yeah.
I mean, it's like writing licks. It's not a gimmick because they're like really if it supports the melody and
Yeah.
and if it's right, sometimes if you're forcing it, it's just like it doesn't work. So you just gotta like the rabbit, run around until you find another way to get into the hole. you know.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
nice way to put it. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
To talk to the composers like Dave Douglas, these guys who write all the time, just how they do it. I think that's important. That
Yeah, he has in
uh,
his house. It's really nice. He lives little upstate in New York, just outside of the city, and it's kind of his house is a little bit nestled in the woods.
mm,
It's a really really nice house, and he has one room where the piano is even up on a platform. That's the only thing in this room, and as
oh
you
man,
walk through the
yeah,
house, it's like room. It's like, and when you look at that and you have that, it's like impossible to not want to go in there and just
right,
put
yeah,
your paws on the instrument. It's like it's really absolutely mighty. All this glass all the way around.
yeah.
So music for the raccoons and and the deer and like a Disney movie on acid.
Yeah, wow, that's nice. Yeah. But
Vincent Chansey told me a story about
oh,
that one. He was out in the middle of the country and playing his French horn and out in the woods, and he'd be out there and he'd just be playing and playing and playing and playing, and then look up and he had an audience of animals all like, is that a French horn?
that's cool. All the rabbits are like, yeah, 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 man. He's playing the I think it's a melodic
I've heard
scale.
about this
Yeah, I've heard.
instrument.
Yeah.
Daddy said, watch out.
Oh my God, that's a cool one. But Luis, I mentioned before, JJ, and what was he one of the main reasons why you picked up jazz actually, or how did that happen for you? Like, I guess early 80s, late 70s. I don't know when was the moment for you.
Oh, yeah, late 70s. I went to junior high school and in Los Angeles at this high school called Eagle Rock. The band director was a gentleman named John Ronaldo from Champaign-Urbana, Illinois, just outside of Chicago. He was teaching the high school, and I took this class called Beginning Brass. And I thought it was a shop class. I thought I'd be making lamps and ashtrays and this sort of thing, you know.
That's cool.
But by this time, I was always listening. I begged my father since I was like, I don't know, about 8 or 9 years old to buy me a little transistor radio with a one earpiece, and I'd be listening to. It was just AM radio. I'd be listening to Earth, Wind and Fire and Ohio Players and Hot Chocolate and James Brown, and then and like all this funk stuff and like soul and R&B stuff. And I could remember all the melodies and all the horn hits.
Mm.
Still never remember the lyrics. Sometimes I get lost and I forget that I'm not even listening to the lyrics anymore. It's just, it happens on a regular basis. So I'm sitting there in this class Monday morning, and there were about 8 or 10 students, and the high school band director, John Ronaldo, said, trumpet, 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 trumpet. He looked at me, trombone. I need trombone players, trombone, trumpet, trumpet, and the last guy, trombone. And then I could get a sound on it immediately. Nobody in my family on either side, even extended family, played music at all. They were all in Costa Rica. Nobody played music, any musical instruments. So I just picked it up, had a natural talent for it, and he was really a great teacher as well, like really inspiring, even like a lot of tough love. But he had a lot of really great musicians come out of that school. I went to high school, junior high school, and high school with Scott Colley.
Oh,
And
really?
then,
Oh, wow.
yeah, and then Larry Coons was there, and David Stone, and Carlos Vega was there before me, and Arturo Velasco was there, and Roger Ingram, the trumpet player, saxophonist Sharon Hirata, Daryl Vandroff, another drummer. There was Dave and Doug Ronaldo, of course. There were just a lot of people that really came into that school that were like really extremely talented and pursued a career in music.
Mm. Interesting.
So yeah, it was kind of that. And then I think by the time I was in high school, I started taking lessons with Roy Main in Los Angeles, who was like the guy that the main man really. Everybody saw him when I started studying with him, and he didn't want to take high school kids because he didn't think that we were serious. I was serious. Made me clean his pool the first couple of times for my lesson, and I had to pay him. But Alan Kaplan was there, and Andy Martin, and Charlie Marillis, and Tommy Griffith, and it's the whole list of all these guys that are doing everything in Los Angeles now. They were all his students.
Mm.
So I think I was Dan Levine and I think are the only ones that ended up moving to New York. Everybody else stayed in Los Angeles or in kind of the West Coast anyway.
Mm.
That's kind of how it got started.
How come you decided to go to New York and not stay on the West Coast? Since now, like everyone is almost, I think, half of the people I play with in New York are now on the West Coast. Like, but
Dave, about 10 years ago, maybe even more, Dave Binney was one
yeah,
of the first guys that moved to the West Coast, and
back,
there
yeah.
was, he did an interview, and in that interview, he said, just like as it was before, so as long as you're close to an airport, doesn't matter where you are. And we're certainly connected by the web now, so that makes it also much easier. And during the pandemic, how many musical productions came out of that just from
Oh, man,
people never meeting? All these big band records of anybody, everybody's
I've
like
done
putting their
ton
blood.
of these, man. Yeah.
Really, really, like, I mean, that's like it's amazing because the joke was usually I'll just phone my part in, and you can actually do that now. You know, um, when I was growing up, um, I also in Los Angeles, I was going to college at Cal State Los Angeles. Every time I would go out to see music, it would be Art Blakey or Red Rodney or Betty Carter or Wynton or Donald Harrison and Terrence Blanchard and like all of these groups. Everybody was in New York.
Mm.
I saw the band. I saw especially Blakey. I saw Blakey every time he came. I want just really, of course, who doesn't want to play with Art Blakey? And he and Betty Carter both encouraged me to move to New York.
Mm.
Said, what are you doing here? I was like, well, I don't know. I was at that point, I was already starting to do some of the studio work, doing films. And I mean, that can be kind of fun, but it's like a job. You're not really playing music.
Exactly. Yep.
You go to movies and you hear this incredible film score, but everything is due to editing. Everything is all done in a lot of little pieces because they don't know what their final edit's going to be. And so it's like you're not really getting to play this whole bit of music, and it's not it's not the spontaneous kind of creative aspect to music that drives me. So they told me move to New York, and I didn't know in July of 1990. I did a few nights at Peter Inn's club, the Bass Clef in London with Gerald Wilson's big band, and then we played the North Sea Jazz Festival when it was still in The Hague in
Hmm.
1990. And I was like, whoa, this is, on the way back, Anthony Wilson and I were thinking of moving to New York. Mike Kane, piano player,
Yeah,
just moved,
yeah.
and he was a good friend of mine. And so I stayed with him. And the trumpeter, James Seeley, just moved there too. Jim Seeley just moved there.
Oh,
So on the way back, I spent 10 days in New York. And the first time I came out of the subway right next to the Blue Note at the West 4th stop in the subway, came upstairs and looked around, and it was like everybody was walking in the streets, and there's all these doors were open, there's music coming, live music coming from everywhere. I was like a kid in a candy store. I was like, this is for me. Went back to Los Angeles, and I just declared, said, I'm moving to New York in 6 months. That's it. And without ever, I was still living at home with my parents. Imagine that.
wow,
I
man.
was
Yeah.
having to shop and cook my own food and do my own laundry and keep my own place clean and everything. It was like, it was pay my own bills. Like, oh man, that was like, what a shock.
Yeah.
At a,
Yeah.
at a tender 25 years old. Hello, people are doing this at, they're 17, 18 years old now. And I'm like at 25. And so I just moved to New York and got an apartment in Park Slope, Brooklyn, and basically did not leave my apartment for 1 month because I was so shocked. I was like traumatized. I was like, what have I done? What have I done? But then, little by little, things start to happen. And before I knew it, I was rehearsing with Lester Bowie and Brass Fantasy, who Lester lived very close to me.
Mm.
And I knew I'd met Bob Stewart because the year before, Oscar Brashear was in Gerald's band. And he told me, come out, check out my friend. His friend is Bob Stewart. I saw
Mm.
Bob Stewart play with Hambone, and I was like, Clark Gayton was a trombone player, and it was just really absolute. What's Jerome's last name? I can't remember his name. Anyway, playing. It was just really playing guitar. It was just like really just killer group.
Mm.
And so when I walked in, I saw Gerald. I mean, I saw Bob Stewart, and then we just started talking and did the rehearsal. And it turned out that Tom Moyer was
Hmm.
the percussionist road manager during that time. And I did a couple of days of rehearsing, and he called me up and Diego, he's calling me by my middle name, Diego. It's like, yeah, you got a passport, man? And I was like, yeah. Said, what are you doing this summer? I was like, going on tour with you guys? Sure enough, 6 weeks in Europe with Lester Bowie was 2 weeks at
Man.
Scots, and then went straight to Umbria to Perugia, the Umbria Jazz Festival. And I mean that's how it started. And then we were all over Europe, all
Yep.
over Germany and Austria and France and Spain and Norway and Sweden and just really just like everywhere.
Mm.
So, then I was absolutely certain that the move to New York was, I
Right.
think the two best gigs, the very beginning of the 90s was in the late 80s, 90s was Lester Bowie and Miles Davis. And then Miles died in September of
Yeah.
91, so that left Lester as the reigning king.
How was he like
So
to
it
you
was,
guys as a
what's
band
that?
leader? How was he like as a band leader to you guys and your
And he
experience?
was really absolutely great because
Mm.
he not only encouraged you to do your own thing, it was expected to find your own voice because that's what made the gig. He
Mm.
didn't need just a schmuck playing the parts. He needed somebody to like not only play the parts but be creative and completely open up. Sometimes he would just cut the whole band off and leave you out there for 10 minutes by yourself.
Ooh.
So yeah, exactly. Said you better move around or do if you get stuck, you better move around or do something. You can't just stand there. So he was really great as a band leader, just like really very uh very flexible, but with definite direction.
Mm. Yeah.
And you know, and I mean, he liked as I mean, he was completely 100% about the music, but he would have so much fun with it that of course it's impossible for it to not be entertaining because when you know anytime you see anybody in their discipline truly
Yeah.
enjoying themselves at a very profound level, it's like how could you not enjoy that? It doesn't, regardless of what they're doing, you know.
Exactly. Yeah.
He was the epitome of that for sure.
Mm. Yeah, I love that band. I mean, just you guys, you mentioned Vincent and Frank Lacey and Bob, and it's just like, man, that's such a group. I listened to that one, the Fire record. I think it's the first one you did with him, right? It's just like it's killing, man. It's like EJ, yeah, Alan on trumpet also. And like, whew,
Eddie, yeah, Eddie was there.
yeah,
Yeah.
fantastic group, man. Yeah,
That was a good group. It was a lot of fun.
yeah,
Well, I learned so much, especially about how to really anticipate how to play with others. Vincent Chansey,
yeah.
the first tour that I did, that 6 week tour, Steve Turre was the other trombone player,
Ooh, man.
and
Okay.
he was playing. He played most of the solos, really. And so Vincent and I really kind of got into this groove where we could anticipate which backgrounds we were going to play just without even speaking about it. We just walk up to the microphone, we'd start playing the same rhythms in harmony, and it's really just like really crazy. We
Wow.
spent so much time on it, and he's really one of my better friends, and for sure one of my musical heroes too. But
Yeah,
it's like
yeah.
he's so clear about this, so easy to follow, that it's almost easier to anticipate what he's going to do, and it was always different,
Mhm.
and we would just like figure things out, or sometimes Lester would cut off the band and let the two of us play, and we would do like a 5 minutes of trombone French horn chorale.
Beautiful, man. Yeah,
So again, my hats off to Lester for not only encouraging but like really recognize uh where to exploit his band members' talents for the better of music.
yeah, yeah. That's what a good band leader does, right? Just
Absolutely, oh,
yeah. I
for
mean,
sure,
that's yeah,
for sure. I mean, it's given me a whole bunch of. I mean, I learned so much from him and from Gerald Wilson too. Gerald would be doing it was the same thing.
mm,
Gerald, being one of the architects of jazz in the first place.
yeah.
Sometimes we would start. He never had chord changes written for solos. Never. It
Oh
was
wow.
just what
I
it
don't
was.
know.
Sometimes he was using really intricate harmonies, you know. But he just I remember we played. I think he did an arrangement of Equinox,
Mm,
and he never used key signatures. Everything was always all the accidentals were always written, you know.
wow.
So everything looked like it was in the key of C, but it wasn't. So we're playing Equinox and with the big band, and we're at this Bach and Dynamite or something like this. I'm in Morro Bay in California. Big band's playing there, and Johnny Coles is on the is on the gig, and he's trying to play Equinox, and he's thinking it's like C minor, but the original recording is in D flat minor. And that's what Gerald did it in D flat minor. So Johnny Cole was looking funny. He'd play something and look at his horn and like, that isn't right. And then just like stumbled through a couple of minutes. It was painful. And then when we go on the break, we go downstairs and everybody was like, all the guys, that knew him, they were teasing, they're laughing at him. He goes, yeah, I didn't figure out it was in D flat until like the last four bars.
Oh man, that's quite cool.
They were always Harold Land was on that band.
Wow, wow.
I was so young for the first year, I didn't realize that Harold Land was like the Harold Land,
Yeah,
until I was still in college. So I started transcribing Joyce Spring, Clifford Brown. Let me get the
yeah.
saxophone too. Harold Land. I was like, oh no. So the next time we played a gig, instead of calling him Harold like I was used to calling him Harold, I started calling him Mr. Land, Mr. Land. Then he like looked at me like, what's wrong, son? I was like, well, I'm in college. And I was like, it's just transcribing. And I was like, that's Harold, but I'm such an idiot. And he was so generous and patient. He was like my grandfather. He was like just super nice, encouraging, showing me stuff like the way it used to be before, before here's a plug for you, Tim Armacost.
Yeah.
Before there were books like this, it was all by rote. So
Yep.
sit and first time I played with Gerald's band, it was Dizzy was our guest, and I asked them, it's like, how do you play on this minor seven flat five chord? He goes, oh, the half diminished, that's the flat six chord. And I had no idea what he was talking about. But I was like, okay, maybe I've already asked too many questions. It wasn't until later I just kept asking questions and finding out. I asked Harold Land, I said, it's like I'm working for my father's shop and I'm going to school full time and I'm also playing gigs and I have a girlfriend and it's like man, I like to practice, but it's like how can I find time to practice? He said, well, he said, girls come and go, music will be with you forever. So I was like, okay, as corny as that may seem, when I started teaching at Temple University, my first student was, this is, I don't know, 15, 18 years ago or something like this. My first student was this gentleman named Ernest Stewart from Philadelphia. He told me the same thing. And I said, well, I'm just going to tell you what Harold Land told me. Girls come and go, music will be with you forever. And so he comes back the next week and he could do everything that I gave him. I was like, wow, I knew you were talented, but it's like, how did you get it together so fast? And I got rid of the girlfriend.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
Mm.
oh. I asked him, I said, do you ever keep in touch with her? He goes, not really, but let me tell you, I dodged a bullet. I'm pretty sure you did.
Yeah, but yeah, well, at a certain stage of your life, I think we all did the 8 hours per day or something like that, right? Playing and practicing. I
Yeah,
mean, you
I
have
mean,
to, I guess.
I would certainly do. It was always a 4 hour minimum.
Yeah.
I have when I first got to Graz to teach at the university here, I had one student for one semester. That was just a few years ago. Well, I just started calling in everybody and just recruiting like crazy. I think I have 16 trombone players and a French horn player.
Ooh, okay.
And they're all this young man from New Zealand, Connor Gentry, has been here for about a year now. He's made it a point. He wakes up at 6 a.m. every day, and he's in my office practicing from 7 a.m. to 10 every 365 days a year. Well,
Yes.
366 this year, I guess.
Yeah. Wow.
Every day, and it's
That's good.
starting to catch fire. Now there's about 6 or 7 trombone players now every morning just finding space and doing this all the time. And then they stay late at night and they're there on weekends. They're just always shedding,
Awesome.
practicing together, which is kind of a fun thing. I always try to encourage them to do that. But I even have a trombone ensemble, 12, 13 trombone piece
Wow.
ensemble with a rhythm section. Sounds like a big band.
Yeah, sure.
So yeah, so we rehearse and we actually have a few gigs here and there and it's just a lot of fun. And the trombone community, the trombone community here is like super friendly. They all get along together. Yesterday's one of my Erasmus exchange students from Spain's birthday was yesterday, so they invited me to go hang out. And they were all there. He had they're all the trombone players. Everybody was there. It was like really quite nice.
That's
So
fantastic. Yeah.
yeah. So they're all very loving and supportive, and anyway, the scene here at the university is a really nice nice environment. Great, very encouraging, loving environment.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, Graz has a big, long history, for music and for jazz especially, I think. So it's
Yeah, for
it's
sure.
it's nice. Yeah,
It's
it's nice.
the oldest jazz school in Europe.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
It used to, I think, the oldest one is in Leeds in northern England, but
Mm.
since they're not part of Europe anymore, bye-bye.
The title goes to Graz.
That's right. I mean, I
Yeah,
think they beat Graz by about 6 months or something
yeah,
like that. But I
yeah.
don't know. I forget the trombone player's name, the professor up there. really, really nice guy. And some years ago, I was playing a concert there with the Mingus Band, and one of the trombone players didn't make it to the plane. So when we got over here, we needed a trombone player. And up in Leeds, I called a good friend of mine that I played with, imagine, in 1990, Paul Taylor. I played with Gerald Wilson's band. He came and he joined Gerald's band.
Mm.
Asked him if he could do it. He couldn't do the gig in Leeds, but we were at Ronnie Scott's for a week. So it's like he did that one. But I called the professor in Leeds and woke him up in the morning, and he was like, "Oh man, you're coming with the Mingus band?" It's like, I tried to get tickets for that, and I couldn't, not even as a professor. It's completely sold out. I can't even get in. So I went out on a drinking binge with some friends last night. I was like, well, if you want to see the show tonight, you can see it from the second trombone chair if you're interested. Sobered him up in a hurry.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, it was man. And of course he played. He played great. He didn't want to
Sure.
take a solo. He wanted to take a solo, and so I was like, "We'll both go up to the front of the band and we'll just play together." I played a little bit, and then he closed his eyes and he started to play. When he opened his eyes, I was already sitting back down. I was like, "You
Beautiful.
got it!" And of course, he played beautifully. I was like, like just if it isn't fun, why do it?
Oh man, definitely. Yeah. I mean,
God forbid it. God forbid it become a job.
oh yes, definitely. Then yeah,
No, I mean, there's a
definitely.
lot of work, but joy. It's
That's
but
important. Yeah.
it's not. It can never feel like a job. Do you take it with that kind of discipline, of course, but you do it where it's
Yep.
we don't. We wake up until we go back to sleep and dream about it until we wake up and do it all over again.
Yeah. Yeah. The Luis, you mentioned I wanted to ask you the Mingus Big Band and how you played with the Village Vanguard band as well. And how did you get then into the scene like in the 90s? Was all that through Lester Bowie kind of people saw you and like how did you get all these fantastic gigs and
Well, I mean, a lot of that happened after that first year that I was with Lester. We came back to New York and we played at Sweet Basil's for 2 weeks.
mm,
And I think everybody crawled out from any rock they may have been under. And of course, they looked on the stage and like, "Who's this kid? Where'd he come from?" It's like, I've been waiting for that gig for 5 years. What the hell, So it was a little bit of this. I was also doing I was doing a whole bunch of recordings, especially like Latin recordings. I don't know, at least a few hundred records, at least
wow man,
for sure. So I was like on the Latin scene, on the Brazilian scene, on the some like the rock funk scene. Later years later, even with Phil Collins on the pop scene. But
really? Oh wow,
on the jazz stuff, it was because I was around because I was releasing records and I was playing gigs from time to time, and especially when oh, let me see. The Mingus Band, Earl McIntyre called me at the last minute. I think it was like July 3rd of 1992. So the band had only been around not even
already.
a
Wow.
year yet. So I got associated with that immediately, and I already knew quite a few people in that group already. Anyway, just from going out and hang out and going seeing their gigs and and whatnot and seeing who they're playing with. So that just kind of morphed into playing with the Carnegie Hall band, playing with Bob Mintz's band, playing with playing with Toshiko's bands.
Toshiko,
This is
yeah,
like
exactly.
early '90s, and then I started playing with George Grunz's band, and Ed Neumeister had played in the Vanguard for 19 years, and he moved to Graz to teach
Oh yeah,
uh,
exactly.
university. And so when he came over here, uh, John Riley recommended me for the Vanguard, and I went in and they offered. They'd been I think auditioning guys for 6 8 months or something like this. I don't know, slew of folks. And after the first set, they asked me to join the band.
Wow.
I could just read and just try and fit in. I mean, that's what I was trained to do anyway. So even if the music was tattered in, I knew the music for sure. So I just fit right in. I don't know. They gave me I think I had about 4 solos, or I don't know, maybe even 5 solos that night. And I'm like, man, this is fun. Of course, that isn't how it was. Sometimes I'd only play one solo or two, but this just everybody plays so great in them, and it's like it's fun to just be part of it and playing the music is music of McNeely and Brookmeyer and of course Thad Jones.
Yeah, man, that's
I joined that
fantastic.
band in August of 1999, and I knew maybe half the band. I knew for sure. I knew Dick Oates and Gary Simolian and Richie Perry,
Yeah.
uh, John Riley, Dennis Irwin. I knew Earl Gardner. I also
Mm.
knew Glenn Holt, Jason Jackson, Doug Purviance. So I already knew about half the band anyway.
Yes.
So just like Neumeister, grew up in California, moved to New York, played in the Vanguard 19 years, moved to Graz and retired. I grew up in California, moved to New York, played in the Vanguard 19 years, came to Graz to teaching until hopefully I retire. So I have this running gag with Neumeister. So I was like, don't be messing up. I need to know what I'm doing next.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean Ed is amazing. I love this guy. He's such a great player and composer and yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
amazing. Like
for sure.
you mentioned also Dave Douglas and you have like quite a strong relationship with so many trumpet players, from Freddie Hubbard to Tom Harrell and Dave. But with Dave, this must have been how did you end up with Dave with that band?
But I think that was going to be inevitable anyway, because I think Dave has about 50 bands.
Yeah.
He's got, and he's always looking to do something fresh. So after Lester died, a couple years after Lester died, he wanted to put a group together called Brass Ecstasy, is what he called it. And so it
Hmm.
was like in the spirit of Lester Bowie. So what made the most sense was to get guys that played with Lester Bowie. So you got Marcus, you got me, and then I recommended Vincent.
Vincent, yeah.
And then, of course, Nasheet Waits, who has got to be hands down one of the greatest drummers to have ever held sticks.
Yes.
It's I was just in New York a couple of months ago. We played the Freedom Jazz Suite. Recreated the Max Roach piece from 1961 at the New Jersey Performing Arts Center, and we had a ball. We had such a great time. And I got to see some friends that I haven't seen in years. I haven't seen Robbie Coltrane probably in about 15 years, I think. So it's good to see him. And we just had a blast. And he had people from all over the world, from South Africa, from
Well,
living out. It was just really so much fun. But yeah, I was like, I don't know, but I always seem to hang out with the trumpet players too. The Vanguard, I was always hanging out with the trumpet players. And in the Mingus Band, I was always hanging out with Philip Harper and Alex Sipiagin and Alex Pope. It's like, I was always hanging out with the trumpet players. I don't know. They're mad, they're crazy, they're fun. And I don't know. It's just always happens. There's a certain aspect, a certain personality that's really very attractive for me.
mm,
And it's like a lot of bravado, but you have to, I guess, if you play trumpet, because
yeah.
if you don't play trumpet great, you're not going to eat.
Well, that's a good one. Yeah.
There's no fine line between great and like really, really good. No way. You got to be great, because everybody hears a trumpet.
Mm,
If you don't make the trumpet speak and sound absolutely beautiful and perfect every single time,
yeah.
like I say, you're going to go hungry.
True. Uh, not to take too much of your time, Luis, but how did you become a band leader? Actually, those early '90s records. Like, did Lester encourage you, or like, how did those happen? Because it's like many LA guys there. Like, I think Otmaro Ruiz is there, like Abe Laborio and all these. Like,
Yeah, Justo Almario lived right up the street from me, saxophone player, right? And I mean, every time he was coming home, my window was open. I was always practicing. I was always in there shedding. So there was this church right down the street. And so right down these guys would come. Abraham would play, and Richie Garcia would be there sometimes, and Justo, and
mm,
Alex Acuna,
yeah.
and all these different guys. And then I was going out, and at that point I was also subbing and doing some stuff with Poncho Sanchez, subbing every once in a while. So I was kind of getting in that mix. They were all kind of together. So, and I was like super young. I was like 17 years old, 18 years old. So I was always going out and seeing their performances. Justo had this really great I don't know if he still has it, but it's just a great band. He's from a place in Colombia called Tolu, and so his group is named Tolu.
Mm,
So I would always go out and see that. So when I had an opportunity to do my first record in Los Angeles, I called the guys that were my buddies, the most obvious. Kenny Goldberg was on there from Poncho's band. Tony Lujan, who I'd already known, and we were always hanging and practicing together. Otomar Ruiz, I was doing a regular gig with him all the time.
Mm.
It was supposed to be Luis Conde on percussion,
Wow, wow.
but he got the gig with Steve Winwood, and he left. So Michito Sanchez came in, who's also a beast. And living in Prague, he's been in Prague for about 5 years now.
Really? Oh,
So I stayed in touch with him all the time. And then Abraham
yeah.
and Alex. And it's like really quite a nice band. Everything was all recorded, no overdubs, no nothing. It's all live to 2-track.
Wow.
Boom. On a DAT tape, if you remember what those are.
Sure.
So
Wow.
when I was in high school, I had already started. My girlfriend at the time, saxophone player Sharon Harada, and she was always the best musician. She was always the best of everything throughout all junior high school and high school when I was there. She was always like so. I don't know. We just decided to kind of. There were all these high school and collegiate jazz festivals happening in Southern California, so we put a group together and did some really cool arrangements, for whatever our limited knowledge was at that time. But we did a lot of listening, so we just copied and kind of like make up our own stuff as well. And we had a lot of success with that. And when I got to college, I just kept it going. It's always just really, really enjoyed it. It's just it gave me the ability to be creative in terms of composing and arranging. So it's like just another joy that
Yeah.
makes me happy that I'm driven by that as well. So it's always been, I think, like just kind of a natural step. And for sure I like to improvise, but I always get guys that are better than me in the band, so I could just like when I was when growing up in California, everybody in Maynard's band was the guys that I went to college with, in
Mm.
my time, right? So it was Dave Tull and Alex Isles and Wayne Bergeron and all these guys. And so I knew Maynard, and so when I got to New York, I'd just been there for a couple of months, and Jim Exxon, his son-in-law, calls me and says, "Hey, we're in town. Why don't you come down and be our guest?" And he's like, "Okay, cool." Da, 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 da. Go down to the Blue Note. The first night, Maynard is just absolutely. Jim Seeley and I are sitting there, and we're like, "Wow," it was like really spectacular. He was like everything was working. Then he had this thing where he could just like he had like a groove, so he'd like put it on and then kind of torque it on, and then but sometimes it just doesn't fit. It doesn't. So the next night was like not so happening. He was like squirrely all over the place. Yeah, he didn't care. He's like he's like doing his thing, and then he's like playing, and he's like he knows this ain't happening. He just like looks over the trumpet section. He's like, "Take it away." And it was like throwing a piece of meat in front of three hungry
Yeah.
tigers. Each went down. It was like, it was like, oh my God. It was like throwing gasoline on a fire. Like, really kind of crazy. So, take it away.
That's amazing. Fantastic.
But so small groups are fun, and like I say,
Yeah.
especially if you have guys that are, I mean, Bruce Barth, John
Mhm.
Riley, McKee, Ivan Renta. I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know. You can only get different. You can't get any better than that.
True.
I do this this summer jazz workshop in Grozny. I'm the
Yeah,
director of.
in Croatia. Yeah.
Yeah, that's super, super nice.
Oh,
The
yeah.
faculty this year, it's usually Alex Sipiagin, but he has some conflict, so he couldn't make it this year. So we had to settle for Mike Mossman.
Oh man, yeah, yeah. I don't
I
know.
know.
I don't
Aw.
know. Nah,
So
just
Mike Mossman, Ivan Renta, Alex Goodman, Boris Kozlov, John Riley, Hector Martin Young.
wow, beautiful,
Yeah,
man.
Colombian guy.
Yeah,
So
sure.
that's our faculty for teaching.
Wow, beautiful.
And then congruently, I'm also running this JM Jazz World Orchestra. So it's like a youth orchestra from 18 to 26, from students from every part of the world. So,
Beautiful.
I think we have like New Zealand and Italy and Germany and the States and Mexico, and I think maybe Chile or Brazil. And it's just like from all over the place,
Beautiful.
you know.
So you're keeping
So
busy. That's good, man. Fantastic.
yeah, it's like
Fantastic.
what did uh in Shawshank Redemption, you can either get busy living
Yeah.
or get busy the other one.
Yeah.
That's like Voldemort. We don't want to talk about that
Yeah,
one.
exactly. Exactly. But Superman. The, for the new records, when is it something coming out?
I was actually just I've got a pile of music just sitting here on my desk of things that uh I'm actually thinking of recording again in the fall.
Super.
And I think I pretty much know the personnel. Um, but I'll know a little bit more for sure around October, November. So I would imagine I should have a new record available probably this time next year.
Fantastic. Super.
So, and then start going out and playing again
Yeah.
and whatnot. I haven't been able to since I got here 5 years ago. I haven't been able to really go and stretch out. I have some family obligations at home that keep me here. But I think my daughter will be old enough that she'll be able to take care of herself, so I can actually go back out again. And
This
I've been
makes sense.
starting to tinker a little bit. Went to Italy last September for a week, and then November I went out with Exploding Pig another week, and then I went to New York for another week. So
Slowly.
she's usually with me. We're like peanut butter and jelly, always always together, which is like really really great.
Fantastic, man.
But it keeps me home. But now I start to get my projects going. I kind of did the same thing in New York when she was born. I was like, I took 5 years off basically from traveling, and
Yeah. Yeah.
I stopped playing in George Grunt's band and McCoy's band, and I stopped touring. I just stopped only the very very few things, but I would take her with me even if I had her strapped, to my chest. I brought her to Europe by myself. It was fun. She was 2 years old.
Wow, man. Yeah.
So
Yeah. I
she's
get
a
you. I get you.
she's a good traveler. But I took 5 years off in New York, and I was like, okay, once she started kindergarten, figured might as well just get myself back into the workforce. And I thought it was gonna be a very gradual kind of comeback, and it wasn't. It was like I'd been sitting in a slingshot for 5 years, getting pulled, and all of a sudden let go, and all of a sudden I was back to doing everything. Got into teaching. I was at Temple University, the New School, Queens College, Manhattan School of Music, and New England Conservatory,
Wow.
just to teach, and then
Yeah, it's crazy.
playing Monday nights with the Vanguard, and then playing Thursday nights with the Mingus Band, and then doing recording and stuff during the day, and still doing it was just really kind of nuts. So that's why after about 28 years in New York, my knees were telling me, it's like, oh, I think you need a break. Everything was moving faster, and everything started to feel so loud. And I was like,
Yep.
oh, look, it's dirty. I was like, oh my God, I've become that guy.
Yep. Yep.
So, I started traveling with Phil Collins, and the opportunity opened up here at the university. And so it was really a very natural, very organic movement, leaving New York. I
Yeah.
really didn't think about it very much at all. As a matter of fact, the first time I went to Croatia with Siggy Feigl and the Hag Emmet Orchestra.
Hmm.
It was in 2008. We went to
Already.
Zadar.
Okay.
Yeah, we went
Yeah,
to
beautiful.
Zadar. And I was
Sure.
like, oh man, I was like New York. I was like, this is for me. I
Yep.
tried to look for my wife. My daughter wasn't even a year old yet. I told her, like, come on. But she's got a great gig. She's a neuroscientist up at Mount Sinai and TED Talk artist, and she's got so many things going on. She was like, yes, 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 and then no, 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 which was like really like, okay. So most people don't even have one opportunity. When this second opportunity came around, I was like, I'm not going to pass this one up.
Yeah.
It's like, so
Yeah,
it was like,
the quality of life, yeah, here it's
oh,
I think,
absolutely, yeah,
man,
absolutely,
yeah, it's like,
without a doubt,
yeah,
without a doubt, it's where it's at. It's everything everything is super, super nice. Love it. Especially here in Graz, it's like a small city. It's only about
Yeah.
320,000 people, something like this. It's super safe. I'm not worried about my daughter, coming home a little bit late at night or something. She's on the tram or on the buses or
Yeah.
whatever. Because even, there's no way I would let her out like that in New York.
Oh
So
man, sure.
that wouldn't happen.
Yeah. Fantastic, man. Yeah, it's like every time I bring musicians from New York here and we play a gig or recording, everyone's like, man, the food, the wine, where do you live? I'm like, well, it's where all the gigs are also anyway, the good,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
well-paid gigs in Europe. So it's like, it's so yeah, it's a big difference. Yeah.
Like Austria, I think has, if I'm not mistaken, 8 or possibly even 9 borders.
Mm,
That's really, landlocked. But man, if you're going to be
yeah.
landlocked, you have access to, I think the furthest border from here is probably uh, Czech
Yeah.
Republic, Czech, right? I think that's
Yeah.
spent like about 4.5 hours maybe from
Yeah.
here.
Oh, it's even
So,
closer. It's even closer actually. Yeah, from
so
Graz.
it's like, and of course, when I was living in Leibniz, I was 19 kilometers from the Slovenian border.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I mean, my daughter and I would go down there for ice cream.
Sure. Sure.
Go down to
Beautiful.
Maribor and have
Yeah.
lunch on the river. And it's
Yeah.
like, it's like this kind of stuff. And when you're going from, if you have a group, you can travel. It's doable. You can go
Yeah.
from country to country, and it's
Yeah.
all different. It's not like being in the United States, going from Pennsylvania to Virginia and to, well, it's sort of a little different, but it's still the United States. It's all kind of the same thing, and it's a much more difficult hustle. And
Yeah.
I don't know that I find it as nearly as gratifying, because here you go, from, oh, I don't know, let's say my next gig is in Budapest, and then from Budapest, it's like, I don't know, maybe like Berlin, and then to Prague,
Hmm.
and then to, so it's like those that's already a handful of really, really great experiences, and different food, different culture, same appreciation for the music, which is a super high level.
Yeah.
I think when almost every night at our club, Tubes, we have an audience that covers a lot of demographics and a lot of geographic regions too, and everybody's there completely engaged in the music. Nobody's on their phone, nobody's speaking. They're sitting there. You have 100 people sitting there just listening and like really watching and checking everything out. It's a real joy.
Mm.
And then it encourages us to bring in guys. We've had yeah, well, I don't know who we have. We've had everybody from Lou Tobacco to Bruce Barth to Emmanuel Wilkins to John Riley to Dick Oates. We have Bob Minzer coming.
Oh, beautiful, man. Okay.
Yeah, it's like in now in about a month, about 5 weeks, 5, 6 weeks at the beginning of May.
Oh, fantastic.
And then doing different projects. I'm producing a couple of things that I think are kind of fun. It's one of them is like the Trumpet Kings, the Trumpet Summit. Again, back to the trumpets. It's a rhythm
Yeah.
section, rhythm section and 3 trumpets. It's Alex Ipiagin, Jim Rotundi,
Mm.
and Daniel Nozick,
Hmm.
who's killer.
Yeah. He's great.
And then I asked them to arrange their music for 3 trumpets, not just like a jam session up there with 3 trumpets. I don't want that.
Beautiful.
Really just so it's like a band. And sort of like when they were doing like an opera, the 3 tenors, and in jazz, they did 3 tenors with Brecker and
Yeah.
Liebman and the mono. And so it's kind of modeled a little bit after that. And then bringing in, do you know this German piano player, Olaf Poulsen?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
So I'm bringing in another grand piano. We're putting 2 grand pianos face to face, and it's Danny Grisette and
Oh,
Olaf.
beautiful. Fantastic.
So and just doing the different projects.
Chick Kirby kind of idea.
Yeah.
Fantastic, man.
Exactly.
Beautiful.
Hey, it's like Bob Brookmeyer. I got the idea from this record that I got a long time ago. Bob Brookmeyer and Bill Evans.
Yeah, sure. Classic.
Just in case you didn't think that Bob Brookmeyer knew what he was doing when he was playing or writing. Oh man, when he sits at the piano, you can tell for sure. It's like, no joke.
Yeah, one
That
of the
was
best.
what a
Yeah.
guy, man. That's what that was like. What a guy. I'm really fortunate that I met him and got to spend enough time with him. And I mean, he showed me some stuff. And the guy just was absolutely brilliant and a fan of the band. And he was always, cool. Yeah, he was the original lead trombone player. He and Garnett Brown,
Yeah.
who I spent years with in Gerald Wilson's band.
Wow. Yeah. Oh, but by the way, did you ever then got to play with Art?
But no, I never got to play with Art
Ah,
Blakey.
shit. Okay. Okay.
He died before I moved. Before I moved
Ah,
to.
shit. Okay. Okay.
He
Yeah.
died somewhere in the fall of
91? 90?
1990.
No, 90
I
was.
think
Yeah.
90.
Yeah.
He was already gone by 91 for sure.
Yeah.
But then see, Brian Lynch was in the band and like really just helping him on and off. He really wasn't. He was like kind of going deaf and just smashing things right. It would still been fun for sure.
Sure. Yeah.
But Steve Davis was on the band,
Yeah.
and Jeff Keezer looked like he probably was 14.
Yeah. Yeah. I think so. I spoke to him. Yeah. He was like 9 or something. I don't know. No.
Word has it that Miles Davis told him, "Oh yeah, you're the guy that looks like he can't play shit."
Oh my God. Terrible. But cool, man.